remember the first movie I saw, you know, a movie about it, Fablemans. The first movie I saw, we saw in a movie trial, and that was the first one I ever saw in the theater, which was Great Show on Earth. And whatever that was, 52, I think. And I was 6, 7 years old. That was it. And then after that, my parents started in a regular way taking me to see movies. And films that they wanted to see, not films that I wanted to see.
I'm curious about your relationship to science fiction over all these years. Obviously, Disclosure Day is coming soon, and so I've been revisiting all your work. And all of the stories so far are all about this experience through human eyes. I was wondering if you could talk about why you're always centering those stories through the experience of people and not being on an alien world and trying to imagine that experience.
You know, I never really, I could relate to, and one of the first movies I saw, it wasn't original, it came out in 1950, I think I saw it when it was re-released on a weekend. We used to have the theaters that had Saturday matinees, and they were all older films, maybe only 5, 6 years older. But I remember when I saw a movie called Destination. I think it was the first film that George Powell, you know, got his career off to a start. And it was a terrestrial film about, you know, humankind's first trip to the moon. Not that they landed on back in the turn of the century, but it was the first, it was in color. And I went to see it in the theater. And it grounded me because it was as realistic as science, or at least Hollywood consulting with scientists, knew how to tell that kind of a story. And it was full of suspense. I'll never forget the scene where they couldn't, the big fear is to get to the moon, how to get back to Earth. If you spend too much fuel landing on the moon, what do? You know, you got to strip everything out of the spaceship. Got to get rid of everything sending in order. So it was the first time I had ever felt something called suspense. I never felt it. And so in a sense, that movie was amazing. I mean, it was the first, you know, I used to collect soundtrack albums when I was a kid. I still do. But it was the first soundtrack album I ever got. I asked my dad and mom to buy it for me. By Laith Stevens, and it's a real piece of symphonic classical music, unusual in those days for a score.
You mentioned earlier this week when we spoke that you wanted to make Close Encounters of the Third Kind before Jaws, and no one would let you do it. I was wondering if you could just kind of what if with me for a minute. If someone had let you do it, what would that movie have been like? Would you be here today? How do you
make Close Encounters? Because it was a fringe. It was kind of a sort of, it was on the fringes of science and mythology. And so no one really got it. When I said I want to make a UFO movie, everybody thought, well, when you want to make a movie about the National Enquirer, that's what you want to do. You want to make a movie about crackpot reporting of things that aren't really occurring, and you want to make a completely crazy fantasy film about something that isn't happening. So when I went around to pitch, it wasn't called Close Encounters in the page.